Oh, look at, isn't
I
it
gotta
fancy?
clean up before I go to the
Nice.
bar.
Yeah.
Look at your fancy recording device.
What? Oh, that's nice.
I gotta pack up all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. I like how you
prime material, right?
bar get a drink and then come back. You could get a table from someone. You made your own table. I'll make my own table.
Yeah, we
Hi.
don't give us a
Are you
table.
recording all this?
Yes.
We're gonna need you to erase the page. Yeah,
Well, I've been telling people that wasn't a big secret. I was like, hey, they wouldn't let me have a dealer's table, so here we are.
Dad's Mr. Subtle.
All right, so currently we are at the Just Desserts for the Professor, or Desserts for Professors. Yes.
That sign. Yes, they put the lobby sign incorrectly, as well as the incorrect time. According to the lobby sign, it started at 5 o'clock, which it really started at 7 o'clock, but then the hotel asked me if it could start at 6 o'clock for some reason. I don't know. Maybe they had the cookies ready.
And this is why by the time we got here, there was one ready.
Yeah, and Beth got it, not me.
You gotta look out surrounding.
There's Joey Buttercake stuff left, but that's it. Oh my God, he's saying the cookies? Oh no. Gotta get the picture of the haunted child.
Madeline, would you like your own brews?
Oh, that's what that is.
That's what that is. It's a brews.
Not really.
Okay, so that kid looks apprehensive.
Well, brews was probably Moriarty liked him. Let's not.
That's true.
That's you.
I do not. I have enough art in my own house that I can't even hang up.
Like, she looks haunted. I'm willing to bet that the picture is haunted. I have a thing with big-eyed children. I don't know why. You should see the picture I have in my bedroom. Like my great-grandmother got it from me, and it's one of those haunted child with the little sad eyes, kind of like this, just to freak my brothers out. Yes, I know you're recording me. But I love the picture so much, and it sits in my room, like over on one side where nobody sees it. But it's a beautiful picture.
I have a Sandman Comics poster that when the light hits it in the evening, it's amazing. It is the scariest thing. And I totally told Neil Gaiman that, and he's like, excellent. And then he signed it for me.
Oh, awesome.
So did you tell everybody where you were?
I mean,
We're at
that's...
the Holmes in the Heartland conference in St. Louis, Missouri. 6:30 something. I don't know.
I mean, all of that is going to be in the show prior to any recordings.
Well, now you know, too.
It's like you've done this before.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dynamics of the Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to Professor James Moriarty, Napoleon of Crime, and arch nemesis of Sherlock Holmes. I'm Madeline Quinones, and I am joined by my lovely co-host,
Pixie Parkinson.
and we have a returning guest co-host. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
So we are talking today about Holmes in the Heartland, which is a Sherlockian conference that happened in St. Louis, Missouri last weekend, which is the last weekend of July. And it was a really amazing and lovely time. And I'm sad that it's not still going. I want to be back. I want to be back in that weekend because it was so much fun.
She can say that as a guest.
Yeah, Heather was part of the planning committee. So how was it from a planning committee standpoint?
It was good. Like, I could say it could have definitely been a lot worse than it was, and it wasn't. So yeah. Other than having the usual hiccups that backstage conventions usually have, other than that, it went off pretty smoothly. We were all quite proud of ourselves. Of course, being in the background, we all saw all the hiccups, but apparently
Mhm.
nobody else did. So we're going to count that as a win.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, there was the just desserts for the professor thing changing time, but that was the only hiccup that I was aware of.
Yeah.
No, I think that it seemed to come off really smoothly, and I think that everybody really enjoyed themselves.
Yes.
So,
According to our master of ceremonies at the time, also the head of Holmes and Heartland, Rob Nunn, he's heard nothing but amazing, positive stuff about the convention. So we're definitely going to count it as a win.
yay! So yeah, what I hear, well, the first time that I heard about Homes in the Heartland was actually in 2021 because I was just getting involved with in-person fandom, traditional fandom, and Monica Schmidt was like, "There's going to be Homes in the Heartland in St. Louis in the summer, and you should come." And I was like, "Oh yeah, St. Louis isn't that far, is it? That seems like this seems doable for me. Like, yes, I will go." And then the rest of 2021 happened, and that didn't happen. So I personally have been waiting 2 years to do this, but you guys waited even longer because originally this was supposed to be 2020.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 2020, and then we canceled, and we were going to look to see if we were going to do it in 2021, and it was still, there was still hesitation. So we decided to push it back to 2023 because there were a couple of things going on in 2022. So yeah.
Right. So yeah. And it was just so nice. It was so nice. I had such a fun time. It was busy, but it was very busy, but it was fun. So kind of like unofficially, the weekend really started Thursday night, it seems like. Like everybody got to the hotel before I did. I was so jealous.
Not everybody, but yeah. Apparently a group of guys decided to go to the baseball game, and on Thursday it hit 112 in St. Louis. So yeah, that happened.
Oh,
and then the Cardinals lost, so it was just a miserable Thursday for those guys all around.
Gosh, thanks. Well, yeah. So, the funny thing is, like, I had such a hard time. Like when my alarm went off Friday morning, I was like, you know what? You can't. I'm not ready for this. And then I see lightning flash outside my window. I'm like, I'm awake. I'm awake now. And I'm like, crap. So yeah, drove into a cloudburst and decided that I didn't want to die. So I pulled over on the side of I-94 and sat for like 10 minutes waiting for the rain to get past, or at least the downpour. Oh my gosh, it was like zero visibility.
That's not good.
No. But then I drove out of the storm system and into the sunshine. And so the first time I got out of my car, by that point, I was definitely in central Illinois. And I just opened the door and the heat hits me. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's in the 90s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Already. It was a hot one, although I think that the rain Saturday night cooled it off a little bit. Sunday was definitely nicer.
Yes.
Which was lovely. So yeah, Friday, because I got there, when I did, Friday felt like it was a flurry to me. I don't even, oh yeah, I keep forgetting that the library happened. The library tour, which is crazy because I loved it. That was so amazing. I would totally do that tour again. It was so pretty.
Yes, it was.
It was really funny was when we got to the children's section and Beth Gallego, who is a children's librarian, is just looking around and taking photos. And it's just so cool. It was a really impressive children's section. It's like, holy cow. But yeah, made my little artist heart happy was just like all the architectural art.
Yes.
Like they just really went all out with like making it in drawing on different European influences. So if you're ever in St. Louis, I definitely recommend the architectural tour at the Central Library?
Yeah, the St. Louis Central Library
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah. It's so pretty. And that is also where there is a Sherlock Holmes collection housed. And that was really cool seeing all those Sherlock Holmes books, seeing some rare stuff that I'm not able to see otherwise in person. There was like an open bookcase and I was just snapping pictures and I'm just like, this is my to buy list for like the rest of my life. So that was a lot of fun. And then we got back to the hotel and went to dinner. Well, some of us went to dinner. Heather, did you even have dinner? Like what was going on with you while Beth and I were over at train wreck saloon having dinner?
I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Friday. Oh, you know what? I came back to the hotel and I didn't know where everybody else went. So I ended up at the Drunken Fish and sat at the bar and ate some what did I even have? Oh, some teriyaki chicken and rice. And then made it back. And that's when I found out that the train wreck was just having a train wreck. So yeah,
that's kind of accurate.
I missed that. I was there on Thursday and it wasn't that bad because it wasn't as packed in the early morning. But like Friday afternoon, I walked by and saw the group of people in the train wreck as I went to go to the next door to the deli to get some lunch. And as I was coming back, like those people one group got there or finished up and got back to the front at like 1:45. And there was another group that had just got their meals like right after that. So they were like, it was a scarf and run type situation.
It was busy. Yeah. And
there were 3 different conventions going on Friday. So yeah.
Yeah.
They expected it.
And that's like one of the most convenient restaurants to the Sheraton, as far as I could tell anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were stuck in the restaurant for like 2 hours, something like that. I mean, good food.
She missed the desserts though.
He did. So what happened is that somehow the hotel messed up the time on just desserts for the professor. It was supposed to be like 7 to 10 or whatever, and it got its time like massively extended, and it ended up starting at 6, which I thought was really early, especially if you're stuck in a busy restaurant. We didn't get out until 7. My group did not get back to the hotel until like almost 7:30. And I was supposed to be doing stuff there. So I was like really, and by the time we got there, yeah, it was packed. That room was just packed. And I was like, wow. Who all here had dinner, or did you just like eat really early? Like how did you luck out and how did this happen? That was a lot. And then there were door prizes, there were raffle tickets. Brad Kefauver who was running this thing, sponsored by the John H. Watson Society, which is really funny that we were sponsoring a thing focused on Moriarty, but then we were also like selling copies of the Watsonian. So
it's an equal opportunity thing. It's fine.
So Brad I'd sent him some of my comics. It was actually the first time that I'd put any of these comics into like a single page format, because they've only existed on the internet before and it's easier to just put them in panel by panel. So he took these comics and printed them out and used them as decorations, and then also used them as store prizes. So lots of people and several friends, including Heather, ended up walking away.
Very excited.
Oh, that was really nice. You got a comic, Rob Nunn did, Beth did, Jacqueline Morris did. That made me really happy. I like Jacqueline a lot. And she was really excited to get one, so it was very sweet. But yeah, it was really funny. Like Beth and I kept groaning, like either there were numbers really close to ours on the tickets, or else they're just so far away, and we were just like, and then on Friday night, the very last number called was Beth's, and that's when she won a comic.
Yes.
It was cute. Yeah, but by the time we got there, there were basically no chocolate brownies left, which made me so sad. There are like apparently nobody touched the other dessert bars there, like just about.
There were brownies, there were gooey butter cake, and there was cookies. So
see, I never even saw the cookies.
all the brownies, well, the cookies got demolished.
Yeah, apparently.
The cookies were gone, the brownies were gone, and I think the problem with the gooey butter cake is if you don't live in St. Louis, you don't know what gooey butter cake is. So there were probably a lot of people like, I don't know what this is, poke, 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 but I'm going to go for something else. Meanwhile, the St. Louisans, you know, you can tell who's in Missouri because they're like, ooh, is that gooey butter cake? Let me try some. So yeah, it was really delicious because we're from, you know, that area and we know what gooey butter cake is.
Well, I did have one and it was good. I just, you know, given
it wasn't
the choice
chocolate.
It wasn't chocolate. Yeah.
So I probably would have liked it better.
Exactly. Dixie doesn't like chocolate, so she would have gone for the gooey butter cake.
You would have totally gone for the gooey butter cake.
So one of the adults in attendance had brought his grandson along, and this was really funny because the kid he was youngish. His number got called up for the shot glasses, which was hilarious. The room just erupted into laughter. But he did manage to trade with something more age appropriate from somebody else.
Oh, good.
Who then got the shot glasses. I think it was like a puppet or something.
Oh, yeah, the guy who won the dog puppet.
Yeah, so that worked out. But that was funny. And then somebody, I don't remember who got the Wishbone figure, but they didn't want it, so they let Olivia Kirkendall have it. And then the funny thing is, Beth and I are both like eyeing the Wishbone, and we were just like shamelessly being like, you sure you want to leave it there all by itself? Like that could be a dangerous thing to do.
So what Madeline's saying is that she and Beth were channeling their inner Moriarty and Moran that day. Just waiting for Olivia to turn around so they could just snatch.
What was really funny was I think that Olivia wasn't quite sure what to make of us at first, and then finally like she had to leave for a minute, and she's like, I'm taking the Wishbone with me.
Good idea.
Of course, it's really funny because then if Beth and I had stolen it, we would have had to fight about it then. So it's not like we were actually thinking this through. It was all in the moment.
It was an impulse thing. It was fine.
That was a lot of fun. And the whole evening was fun, and the conversation that we were playing at the beginning of this episode was from that evening. So oh yeah, and the funny thing is also something else Hotel Fudge was the name of the thing, because it's just desserts for the professor, and somehow they put it on their schedule as desserts for professors. So that was funny. Beth kept snarking about that. It was really funny. So then Saturday morning came, all too quickly, I think that we have already established I am not a morning person. And also it took me forever anyway to get my breakfast at the Starbucks. They were just like clearly like ordering on the app is the way to go there, because they were just doing all their app orders, and I'm just standing there waiting for my one little dinky sandwich to get heated up. And so by the time we got back to the hotel proper, it was like already almost starting time. And I was flustered and tired and hungry. And almost as I walk in, Steve the vendors were in tables around the room, and Steve Mason had a vendor's table, and he was like, when you found your spot, come back, because I have some stuff for you. I'm like, okay. And then I get to my spot, and I get to where Beth is sitting, because we were roomies again at this thing. And also, I think that we're just leaning into the TV sister thing more and more.
Yeah, hashtag sitcom sisters.
And then we were sitting right in front of Olivia and Rich Krishunas, and Rich was like, Madeline, I have something for you to sign. And I'm just like, okay, I need to take a drink of my coffee first. I'm just like all flustered and harried and hungry and tired. And I'm just like, it's too much. I'm about to have a meltdown. So I sit down and I start drinking from my cafe mocha. And I'm just like, okay, just breathe. You're here now. It's fine. You've got your food and your coffee. And now you can relax. It's all fine. So, yeah. So then, 15 seconds later, I turn back to Rich and I'm feeling human again. So I signed his Baker Street Journal, which, we haven't actually talked about this yet on the podcast because it wasn't a thing the last time we recorded. But my art might have ended up on the cover of the Baker Street Journal, summer 2023.
And
so that's a thing. Thank you.
It does.
So my understanding of the way that BSJ subscriptions work is that you can still like sign up and get previous issues for the year.
Which is what I will be doing.
Yeah, I believe that's how that works. So yeah, I signed Rich's copy. He also had a copy for Ross Davies, and then there also I signed for Phil Burgum and Ray Betzner. So yeah, that was a lot. So then the conference proper got started, and Ray Betzner was the first on the lineup, and he gave an amazing talk about Moriarty, specifically about like how Moriarty got started in crime. And it was so good, and I got to talk with him later, so we are going to listen to a couple of minutes of us talking.
So it was about Moriarty and the search for order in the universe. So the core question is, why would someone who was a mathematical genius become a crime boss? That is something, Holmes says that it is part of his ancestral family tree, that crime was part of his family, and that when it hit Moriarty, his genius made him, a super criminal, in essence. And that never held water for me. That just doesn't seem to be based in enough fact. So I tried to come up with something that seemed reasonable based on what we know about Professor Moriarty, that explained why controlling crime would be something that he would be interested in.
Yeah, because that is something that we have talked about on this podcast before. Like, why would this be a thing? Because it's true. How does a math professor become a master criminal? It's one of the big mysteries, I think, of the canon.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciated that and enjoyed it, and I think it was a great way to start the day.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind. Well, I think it's a worthwhile subject to explore, because to me it's a big contradiction in Moriarty's character. First you have him, looking into the binomial theorem. Then you have him on the dynamics of an asteroid. Neither of those topics have anything to do with crime. And it just doesn't make sense to me that he would suddenly shift from kind of one set of behaviors to another set of behaviors. So you have to come up with an explanation for why that happened. And I tried to create one. Hopefully it was one that people found both entertaining on the one hand, but maybe possibly, it's kind of, I could see that. That might be something that actually is possible. Yeah. There was a reason why Holmes says that Moriarty, there were these dark rumors about him when he was in university, and so I theorized that he was actually trying an experiment in controlling the bad behavior of his students, and kind of set up a set of rules by which they would behave, that essentially said, you only do those bad things that I will allow you to do, and if you get caught, don't worry, I'll get you out of it because I'm a professor here. But if you find anybody who's doing bad things that I don't allow, you need to let me know about it and we'll take care of it. And that was kind of his first step into it. The real trigger, though, for me was reading that Moriarty, when he left the college that he was working at, became a crammer. He was someone who was going to help young men who wanted to get into the military pass their military exams. Well, if you're putting together an army of people who were going to take over the criminal activities of London, there is no better recruiting ground than this group of young men who are constantly coming in through the door who want your help, and Moriarty can assess pretty quickly whether this person sitting in front of him would make a good member of his army as opposed to Her Majesty's army. And so it was a perfect opportunity. He was a tutor, but he was also a recruiter.
Right, and of course this is when Dixie and I like to think that he first met Moran and clocked him for potential future plans. Final question, I guess, is, are we going to see this as a paper anywhere sometime?
Well, this is actually like the third version of this paper that I've worked on. The first one, I have to admit, I was pretty unhappy with, and that sometimes happens. I get up and I have what I think is a great idea, and I get up and give a paper, and you can judge from the audience reaction that I didn't do a very good job of presenting the material. And it has appeared, that older version appeared in a volume of the Sherlock Holmes Review, but when the opportunity came to deliver it here, I went back and reworked it considerably, and I think it works better in this format. But I think it also works better as a presentation. You remember I had a bunch of slides to go along with it, and in as much as there's also a lot of humor associated with it that comes from the slides. Professor Moriarty's head on a spider's body, badly placed on a spider's body, by the way. I felt, by the way, just a little embarrassed doing that in front of an artist who would have done it so much better than I could have.
I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to, is the thing.
Well, at any rate, I thought the crudity of it actually helped make it even more funny.
Yes.
But the fact is, you've got these two giants with great intellects, and you can trace the path of how one goes on to one kind of twigs out what's going on here, and then slowly makes his way up the spider's web into the center of the web and divines that Professor Moriarty is there. So yeah, I don't think it's going to appear anyplace, but if there's anyone out there who wants me to come and give it to a science society meeting, if I can figure out the finances and figure out the timing, let me know, and I'll see you soon.
I am starting to think that we need to create a Moriarty essay book, and that is how I will get you. So
there you go. All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ray. This was lovely.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for your interest and for enjoying it. It really is a lot of fun to get up in front of a group of fellow Sherlockians and entertain them and hopefully make them think just a little bit too.
So that was Ray. He is lovely, and that he really actually went quite a bit into his talk there, so that's great because, well, Dixie, that gives you a glimpse into what it was
But now I hope that he does write a paper because I want to hear more about this.
I know, right? I'm just really thinking like I need to, because there are good Moriarty and Moran papers and presentations out there, and I don't think that there's ever been a book that like brings them all together. So I want to do that. Steve Doyle, if you're listening, I think I've got a pitch for Wessex Press. I just remembered, if Ray doesn't mind, one little quote from the talk that was just amazing. Moriarty's spider sense was tingling. All right, so, Kristen was actually up next. So Kristen gave a talk about Moran called Moran's Game, and it just like went through the whole timeline of Moran's life, and there was like a lot of detail to it. And yeah, that was a very informative talk. Like I told Kristen, I would have had, if I was trying to take notes, I would have, on her talk specifically, I would have had to have been writing in shorthand because that was a lot of detail.
Moran's Game. I kept it simple because Moran is a mystery. That's why I chose Moran.
Your talk was just basically kind of like a timeline of Moran's life, right? That's a fair assessment?
Yeah, a timeline with some more interesting pieces in the middle. So yeah, I decided in 2019, 2020 that I was going to do my talk on Moran because like nobody talks about Moran ever. And he's the one that tried to kill Sherlock the most of anyone in the books. He tried multiple times to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And I still argue that, I think I brought this up when he said, Sherlock said he was afraid of air guns in The Final Problem. He was obviously referring to, he knew Moriarty was going to kill him, and it was going to be Moran that shot him. Because Moriarty doesn't like to get his hands dirty, and Moran likes to shoot all the things. So, of course, Moran would do that, right? And that's his air gun that he mentions. So he tried to kill him at least 3 times. Not more. It's just caught up to him that one. So yeah, that's why I was like, we definitely need to cover Moran more. He doesn't get his due.
Exactly, and this is the point of this podcast: pro Moran agenda, giving Moran more love.
Yeah. Because he killed like God knows how many people he killed because Sherlock couldn't even find any evidence. And he was so good at covering up. I mean, between him and Moriarty, obviously he was good at covering his crimes because even after Moriarty died, he never got caught.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I would say he was an evil genius, possibly more than Moriarty was, because he just got taken out in one fell swoop by Sherlock on the falls. Like it didn't take much, did it? It wasn't really that much of a struggle. He just gone, and then Moran's still trying to kill him.
Well, and then at the end of your presentation, you had a slide that had a bunch of Morans on it,
Yes.
which was
All the
fun.
Morans. All the Morans. I had to do that. I know. I need to make it better. I need to make it better for the next time I do the Moran talk, because I am going to do it again, because I missed some things in my presentation because I had my printouts, and I print everything out at the library, and they printed them back to back, and I did not number them. So I was like, I know. So it's okay. It's okay. And then also, like, I did not practice my presentation enough, I think, because I think there could have been a better order. But that's like me being like super picky, because I have stuff that I would add in. I was constantly I was still working on it, like even the day before. I was still adding stuff, and I was like, do we want to, I like did the whole timeline, and I was like adding pictures. Like, I should have gone over those. I had pictures for everything on the timeline that fit in. Next time I'm going to animate it so they like fly in, like really, really cool. I didn't have time to do all that. But I know, even though I had 4 years. 4 years, Kristen, you had 4 years. Yes. I'd be a little of a procrastinator, but like I literally was having dreams about what I was going to say. Wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, that's really good. I should write this down, like 3 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I'm a little neurotic when it comes to that. But yes, I was dreaming about Moran things, like all the Moran things. Waking up in the middle of the night, oh, I have to add this. Oh, I have to add this. And I'm sure I forgot some things too, because I was like, do I want to turn on the light again and write for an hour? Like, it's just, and then I can't read my handwriting. I have to translate it. Yeah. Oh, I have more than one favorite. I mean, it depends on who you want it. I was actually gonna be like kind of name the Morans. Like, that was the part that I was gonna do. Like, this is more murdery Moran. Like Vinnie Jones. Vinnie Jones is more like serial killer Moran. Like, he's stringing people up and slitting their necks. That was nice. And then, favorite anime Moran. I mean, there's only one anime Moran, but we could have more. I think we could have more. I'm sure there's got to be more like cartoon Morans. I should find all the Morans. Next time I'm gonna find all the Morans. Yeah. And then that Donald Crisp guy, I've never even seen that. It's like Return of Sherlock Holmes. It's like one of those, like, I don't even know. And then Fassbender, I'm like interested because they fan cast Fassbender across from Moriarty, because they had Lord Moran, but he was he was not
a nothing burger character, which was very sad.
Yeah, I don't know what they were going for with that, but it sucked. So as Morans go, that sucked. So we didn't even put him on there. We just put the fan cast Fassbender because I was like, yes.
That was great.
Of course, we want Magneto as Moran. Duh. I mean, who wouldn't? Moran wasn't really bulky. He was good in hand-to-hand combat, but I could see him be more like, he's better sniper. He's a far away person.
It's true.
Just take him out from far away. Why do you have to get close? Just one shot. Boom. I mean, look how he was with that air rifle. That has an arc. Air rifles had a specific arc. I could have gone a lot into the air rifle. So for him to be that good of a shot, to be able to hit the bust, even because you have to judge the arc plus the shadow. You have to figure out how far the person is away from the window with the arc, and he hit it. Like, I mean, there was points that said, Mrs. Hudson said it went into the back wall. It wouldn't have been a straight shot. It would have been an arc with that air rifle. So Miss Hudson was mistaken, went into the far wall, probably didn't go to the wall. Probably went down and more like down at the arc. But the fact that he hit the bust dead on in the head is that's a freaking shot. I mean, you can't mess that one up. Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty close. He'd have to judge that. So yeah, when they said he was like the best shot, Conan Doyle was not exaggerating. He
Yeah,
was
it's
a
like,
damn good shot.
no wonder Holmes is scared.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also, how many times has Holmes said he's scared?
I know,
Right? Just once. He's like, what are
Yeah.
you? Even Watson was like, what are you scared of, man? He's like, air guns. And Watson's like, what now? I like the fact that literally I placed him at Oxford. He would have been there the coldest day of Oxford.
That is really funny.
It's still a record. And with global warming, it's going to stay a record forever. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And the evolution talk.
Yeah, that was
Darwin,
interesting.
yeah, the evolution debate was there at the Natural History Museum, which I also went and visited when I was in Oxford.
Next up was Cindy Brown talking about characters she loved to hate, and that was so much fun. So the bad guys that she talked about were Charles Augustus Milverton, James Windibank from Case of Identity. Both the Schlesingers from Lady Frances Carfax, the con artist couple who were holding Lady Frances Carfax prisoner, and also the Honorable Philip Green, the guy who was like basically stalking her. And I was like, yes, thank you, Cindy, for that. Let's recognize stalkers when we see them.
Yep.
And then she finished with Jonas Oldacre from Norwood Builder, and it's like, yeah, he was a really nasty piece of work. So that was really fun. And Cindy is such a nice lady, and she was just a lot of fun. So that was good. And then the last talk before lunch, which is something that Rob pointed out, was Steve Doyle talking about Baron Gruner, the most misunderstood character in the canon, but you think it's going to be Gruner apologetics? Not so. His talk was actually about how Baron Gruner is probably worse than lots of people think. How he is actually like the absolute worst person in the canon. So that was just delightful, because definitely he was leading everybody to expect one thing, and then he delivered something totally different. So that was wonderful. The funny thing is that Rich Christian is, and I still haven't read it, I'm sorry, Rich, just published in the Baker Street Journal a defense of Baron Gruner, but this is what Rich does because he's an attorney and he has done defense in court, and you gotta, when you're a defense attorney, you've got to defend everybody. Doesn't matter how you feel about them. So then we broke for lunch, and that's when I finally got a brownie. Yay! And that was fun. And also throughout this, there were more door prizes. There was just a lot of stuff, a lot of books. There were some Paul Thomas Miller books, some autographed Paul Thomas Miller books, which was delightful. I'm not sure where those went, but I hope that whoever has them is happy. Okay, so first talk after lunch was Mike McSwiggan, who I think out of everybody on this lineup, well, okay, I guess I had heard Cindy talk before. I'd heard Cindy talk before. This was Kristen's first talk, so I had not heard her talk before.
Yes.
And then Mike has given talks, but I've never seen him do it before. And Mike McSwiggan is a member of the Chronology Guild or Chronologist Guild. And much was made of the fact that this was the most chronologists gathered into one place. Because him and Brad and Vincent Wright and Bruce Harris. So that's 4 right there. I don't know about anybody else, but those were definitely 4 whom I knew. So he gave a talk about chronology, and it was hysterical because he made a lot of the fact that, most people find chronology boring. And it was just really funny, but he actually went through like the history of Sherlockian chronologists, from Ronald Knox to S.C. Roberts, H.W. Bell, of course, William S. Baring Gould, Martin Dakin, a bunch of names that you recognize if you are really into Sherlockian history. If you are not, you're probably not going to know these people. He also gave a big shout out to Helen Elizabeth Wilson, and that made me really happy.
Yes. She doesn't get enough love.
Yes. And we were talking about that before at lunch, how there's a bit of a dispute about that, because somebody claims that this one paper that preceded hers was the first Sherlockian paper. And I'm like, look, I read that paper, and it's like, that person is not a fan of Holmes. They're a fan of Edgar Allan Poe.
Look, just accept the fact that the very first Sherlockian was a woman and move on.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it was. The first
and
person
a
to
college
write a
girl,
paper.
no less.
Yes,
a college girl.
exactly. The first person to write a Sherlockian paper was female. I'm so sorry.
Not sorry.
Yeah. Like the fangirls say, I don't know what to tell you. It's canon. That's what happened. I'm sorry. It is a canon event.
Love it.
And now you're going to get a bunch of hate from a bunch of people going, tell Heather she's never allowed to be on your show again. Because how dare she?
Are you kidding me? We don't get enough listens for that.
Oh, now you will.
Scott and Bert at I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere joke about having 7 listeners. Okay, they have lots more listeners than that. We're the ones who have 7 listeners.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a really fun talk. I wish I remembered more of it, but Mike is really funny. So that was great. Very much enjoyed that. After that was, and I'm still not going to remember the name of the talk because it was long. Beth Gallego.
Nope, wait, I have it. Hold on. It's called Enemies for Life, The Faces of Moriarty in Sherlockian Literature for Youth.
Which is why I didn't remember it. Well, so her talk was about Moriarty as he appears in children's literature and also Sherlockian literature for teens. Because, again, she's a children's librarian. So I do have a recording to play with her in just a sec, but she described 4 categories of Sherlockian literature for children's and teens, which fell into canonical abridgments and annotations, young Sherlock, Victorian. This is more than 4 categories. Okay, just multiple categories. Children in Holmes's England, descendants of Holmes or Watson, young Sherlock Holmes contemporary, and Sherlock Paws. So any animal versions of Sherlock Holmes. And it was an extremely comprehensive talk. I know that she was working on it almost right up until the day, but there was a lot there.
It's called Enemies for Life, Faces of Moriarty in Sherlockian literature for youth.
So the title kind of describes the talk, but do you want to add anything to that?
See, that's why it was difficult when Rob said, please send us a synopsis of your talk. I did. No, it is looking at Sherlockian books written for children and teens. They don't always have a Moriarty, but pretty often they do, and it's interesting to see how they take the professor and turn him into a character that can be in a book for kids or teens. I am a children's librarian by profession. I've been a youth services librarian for about 20 years, and about 10 years ago I started collecting Sherlockian books for children and also for teens. So it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And so when Rob said, well, we're doing this conference and the theme is arch enemies, and I thought, well, what can I talk about that nobody else will probably talk about? And I picked Moriarty, who of course many people would like to talk about, but I thought this was a different angle on it.
Yeah. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
Oh, thank you.
Especially actually getting to see Book Rat again. I still never read the Basil Baker Street books, so I'm still only familiar with Vincent Price Ratigan, who is definitely kind of a different beast.
And Ratigan isn't in the first book. The first book, Basil of Baker Street, he doesn't appear. He appears in the second book when Basil and Dawson go off to Switzerland. Surprise.
Beware of trips to Switzerland.
Indeed. Beware of the Bachenreich Falls.
Alrighty, so that was Beth. She was the easiest person to talk to because since we were sharing a room just after the conference, went up and we talked there, which in the quiet room. So the next, and I think actually the last talk was Monica Schmidt's BBC, but do not observe. So it was about whether or not you could actually classify Sherlock Holmes as a sociopath. And Monica is a mental health professional. And so, you know, she, like all her Sherlockian stuff, like just comes from that background, which is like she is such a rich source of knowledge and information when it comes to that. And yeah, what I ended up doing, and I don't have them in front of me, but what I ended up doing was just taking photos of her slides because there was no way that I was going to be able to note take any of that. But she took us through the diagnostic criteria for diagnosing someone as a sociopath or as a psychopath. It was specifically through, it was like narcissistic personality disorder, and then something else. Heather, do you remember what the other one was?
Yes, it was narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial.
That's it.
It was NPD, which in antisocial personality disorder, which apparently John Watson has. So, according to Monica, not me.
Yeah. Well, I think specifically BBC Watson, right?
Definitely BBC Watson.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was just, oh man. I want it as a paper so I can read it and more fully absorb it, because that was a lot of information that she was throwing out there. And that's not a dig at her. It was wonderful. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. And I learned a lot and I forgot a lot. But
by that time, I think everybody was just exhausted. So at that point, it was literally, okay, let me see what I can possibly remember.
Right. But yeah, conclusively, Holmes did not qualify for either antisocial personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder. So that was and I think she focused on Canon Holmes but I think that also pretty easily applied to BBC Sherlock as well. So that was really great. It's just like, yes, bestow upon us your knowledge. And that was also her birthday. I just got to give a shout out to her. It was her 42nd birthday, so she is currently the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
And everything. Which makes perfect sense.
Yes. And also, she was wearing her Peter Blau jacket, which was delightful. The thing there is that longtime Sherlockian Peter Blau has a pale blue jacket. You know what? I think that's just a thing that was like in style however many years ago, because I remember my grandpa having a similar jacket, okay? But yeah, it's like it's his signature jacket that he wears at like BSI weekend. And Monica, of course, has gotten herself a pale blue jacket that is similar in color, and so she was wearing that day, and that was cute. She was like, I'm doing my Peter Blau cosplay.
I laugh now every time I hear Peter Blau's name because I can't stop thinking about the play.
I know, because of the joke. Yeah, but anyway, moving on. The last thing before we had to shut. Oh, and I should say we had a couple of half-hour breaks, which were wonderful and dangerous because that's when I spent a lot of money on books, as you do. I did not spend as much money as the last couple of times that I have gone on Sherlockian shopping sprees, but still, I did blow out my budget for that. But I got so many good things. Like, I got some books, some Doyle books. I got Daniel Stashauer's Teller of Tales, which is his biography of Doyle, is supposed to be like one of the absolute best. I got A Life in Letters, which is the book that is Doyle's letters with his mother and her letters back. And that's just like all throughout, their lifetimes. And then also letters to the press, because Doyle also like wrote a lot of letters to the editor. So there's a book of his assembled letters to the editor. R.I.P. Twitter, Doyle would have loved you. Really
I cannot guarantee that, but yeah, okay, we'll go with it.
I think that he would have. I think that he...
Until he met the fans.
This is true. He would have been blocking a lot of people.
Yes. Arthur Conan Doyle, God bless his soul, would have been canceled so many times.
Oh, he would have been. He would have been. Absolutely.
Canceled, uncanceled, canceled, uncanceled, canceled, uncanceled.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would have been great. Anyway, so yeah, I got a lot of, there were a lot of gems there. This killed me. This absolutely killed me. There was this one table that had like a bunch of, well, I don't know about a bunch. It had some rare stuff on it. There was this one series, and I think it was John Lellenberg's History of the BSI series. It's old by this point and extremely rare. And I was like, because I recognize I don't know a lot of the books by their titles, but one of them is Dear Sterrett, Dear Briggs. So the correspondence between Vincent Sterrett and Gray Chandler Briggs being a native of St. Louis. So I took the book and I opened it up and I saw the price and had a heart attack. And then I was very, very, very sad. I was like, okay, so these books all cost like way more than even this entire weekend is costing me. Okay, I'll just go away and be sad now. So there was that. But I got a lot of stuff, and I got stuff that I wanted. So this is good. I was selective about what I got. I didn't just indiscriminately pick things up. So, but yeah, and then the last feature of the conference proper, or the specific scheduled time, was the case for whether or not Jefferson Hope was guilty in A Study in Scarlet. And this was amazing because, surprise, surprise, Rich Krishunas was the defense, Michael Waxenberg was the prosecution, and then Joe Eckridge presided as the judge. And it was amazing. And the funny thing is, Michael Waxenberg's closing remarks as the prosecution, it was like the way that the Rosenblatts in New York do the poem at the end of BSI weekend that like is a recap of the Sherlockian year and then the weekend, and they do it all like the night before. And so Michael was coming up with his closing remarks like throughout the conference. Like as people were talking, he was like assembling like how everybody's presentations were pointing in the direction of Jefferson Hope being guilty. And the only one that I remember is him saying that Beth Gallego explained it so well that even a child could understand. And then Rich gave a good defense, as he does, pointing out how absolutely horrible Enoch Drebber and Joseph Stangerson actually were. And then Michael still got to like make a rebuttal. And that's when he claimed that Mr. Krishunas is Jefferson Hope in disguise. I was like, whoa, that took a twist. Plot twist. He is guilty. So then Judge Eckridge opened it up to us, the jury, and that was funny. And I don't remember what all was said and went down. I just remember Rudy Altergott from Chicago. He was like, the juror from Chicago has not received his money yet. And Joe goes, neither has the judge. And, of course, we as a jury acquitted Mr. Jefferson Hope. It was so funny, though. That was like a great way to end things. That was absolutely delightful. And then afterwards, we had a couple of hours before dinner. And that was a time for, things to get taken down and people to just do whatever. This was also a time at which somebody brought in like boxes of free books and was like, here, take what you want. And I'm like, So that's how I came away with volumes 1 and 2 of the original annotated Sherlock Holmes by William S. Baring-Gould. Yay me. Wow, was not expecting that. Yeah, I came home with so many books.
Drove home.
It's such a good.
No way she could have gotten all that on the plane.
That's true. I would have had to have gone out and gotten another suitcase if I had flown home.
And then paid the weight tax.
Right. Because there was a full box of books. There was whatever I could fit into my suitcase, which wasn't a lot because I'd stupidly filled up my suitcase coming in. And I really got to do better about that. But Brad had given me a messenger bag, so I put as many books as would fit into that bag. And then I always carry a couple of garbage bags with me for like laundry and whatever. And so that was a good thing because I filled up a garbage bag with books.
There's a reason Madeline does not fly to Sherlockian conventions.
Yeah.
The fact that she comes home with more books than she can probably fit anywhere in her house by now is one of those.
Yeah. There's definitely going to be 2 Sherlock shelves now, and I'm rethinking my magazine situation in the living room. But so that happened. And then I managed to, it was basically like an informal cocktail hour at the bar before dinner. And that was a lot of fun. There was just a lot of milling around and drinks and just good time. I got Steve Doyle to sign my copy of Sherlock Holmes for Dummies, which is actually the first nonfiction Sherlock Holmes book I ever got. And I think that I actually got it when that book was still like basically new. So that made me very happy. I think that made him very happy. And yeah, that's when he found out that we are basically essentially neighbors. He doesn't live in South Bend anymore, but he's from there originally. And I live not far away. And I also got Ray Betzner to sign my copy of The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes because it's a reprint that he did an introduction for. So I just really wanted him to sign that, and that made me very happy. Basically, I can't think of Vincent Starrett without thinking of Ray, and kind of vice versa. So yeah, and then I got some people to volunteer for doing annotations for the Baker Street Almanac store, which is that's also something that we haven't really talked about yet, and I'm still not 100% ready to talk about it. I think Ross and I need to talk about things a little more, but that is a thing that there are things there that are happening. So yeah, the funny thing is I did get a margarita, and then I barely drank any of it before dinner because I was just busy. I was busy doing things, making waves. Dinner was amazing. That was just excellent food. My side of the room was like the last to go up because the table behind us wouldn't stop talking. So then we just, if there's a long line, up to the food, I'm just going to stay in my seat until that line gets shorter because there's just no point. And then the funny thing is that the dessert table was actually on the way to the rest of the food. And I'm like, oh, there's cheesecake there. And you know what? I think that I can probably handle a plate of cheesecake and also get my food. And Jacqueline is behind me and she's like, you can do it. I believe in you. So yeah, and dinner was great, and I was in great company. Ray and his wife, Ira Matetsky, Steve Mason, Greg Ruby, Erica Dowell, Dick Sviam. Is that the whole of our table? That might be. So at some point during the dinner was when Elephant and Goose Club trivia got started.
And Madeline is being really quiet about this. And I will say it because she's going to be embarrassed. She freaking dominated. We are in a room with 85 other Sherlockians. Look, she's turning red. We're in a room with 85 other Sherlockians, including Ray Betzner, Mike Musquegan, Steve Doyle, big names. And she took everybody out. To the point where even Phil Bergen was on my team, and I'm up there screaming, Phil, come on. I mean, my God, dude, say something.
Oh, and I hated doing that to Phil. He's such a sweetie.
She, it wasn't, when I say dominate, it wasn't the typical, they had one section where they did a one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a section, thank God, where they just did groups first, and then we got the answer. And if we didn't know, then somebody else stole. So we did that, and then we did a free-for-all, and then we did a one-on-one from each team. So of course Madeline's team's send Madeline up, and we're all over in our section going, who's the one who knows the most? So we sent Phil up. That was our mistake. And it wasn't, you had a little dinger, and you had to hit the dinger when you had the question, and it wasn't even it was run by Brad Kiefhofer, and Steve Mason was the goose. And I kept telling everybody the last time we had this Alpha and Goose Club, it was at 221 BCon in 2022, and it came down to Madeline and Ashley won by 1 point. So I kept warning everybody, you don't understand who you're going up against. And they learned that day, because it wasn't just Brad would finish the question, and then they would think about it, and they'd ding. Brad would get three words into a sentence, and Madeline was dinging. And Brad's like, "You can't know this." And out comes the correct answer, and he's like, "Never mind."
In this horrible novel, first published in 1978, Sherlock Holmes. Go for it. The last Sherlock Holmes story. Okay. This television show, let's give it to Madeline. This television show's first episode featured a police vehicle dragging Sherlock Holmes' coffin. Yes, Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. Okay, this one is before Madeline's time, so maybe he's got a chance. A television show that did not feature Sherlock as the main character had an episode titled The Murder of Sherlock Holmes, which also came out as a novelized in book form. The man in a Sherlock Holmes costume is found floating dead in a swimming pool. Oh, it's Murder, She Wrote. Okay, this one requires reading a whole book, so we'll see which one of you read a whole book to the end. William S. Baring Gould wrote a biography called Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street, and he said Sherlock Holmes died of old age sitting on a bench in January 6, 1957, the year I was born. I was always happy with it. Just before his old white-haired head drooped over, he said a first name 2 times as if, holy cow. Irene. That was his last word. Madeline, you get to look in the box. Bill, you get to sit down. Okay, open up the box so Madeline can take a quick grab.
And everybody's like, "How are you doing this? Are you a walking Sherlockian encyclopedia?" Like older Sherlockians are like, I got nothing. Like, these are like questions that we don't even know, and Madeline knows them. So don't let her be like, try to put it on the back burner. She dominated Alpha and Goose Club and won. Like, our team had 8 coins, the other team had 9 coins, their team had 22 coins, and 10 of those were Madeline's.
Actually, 14.
14 of those were Madeline's. So, like, Madeline is the knower of all things Sherlock anymore, and I'm just going to call it. Sorry to everybody else, not sorry. Madeline's the new knower of all things Sherlock Holmes.
So I feel like a quote here is appropriate.
She's embarrassed right now.
I have a strangely retentive memory for trifles.
Yes, and that pretty much sums up Madeline Keonis.
Okay, here's the funny thing. I think it did end up being a little unfair that Monica and I were on the same team. In fact, her table was pushing her to go up. And like, I was down for that. I was wanting to see, how she would do, because she was getting answers. And I think that if we had been on separate teams and if we had gone up against each other, I think that could have been more interesting. Now I'm worried that Brad's not going to let me play anymore. Or else I'm going to have to face the whole room or something.
It'll be Madeline against everybody else, but Brad will let you play. No, I'm kidding. It won't. Look, I would love to see you go up against Monica Schmidt. You went up against Ashley. Paul said, yes. You went up against Ashley, and she won by 1 point. I would love to see what you could do up against Monica Schmidt.
Monica was so excited and happy. She literally would not stop giving me high fives. It was so cute.
It was. She's up there, and like, Monica is her largest cheerleader. Everybody else is sitting down, and Monica's just standing up going, yes.
Well, Monica was actually a cheerleader in high school, so like,
you could tell. Like, even at some point, I was like, yeah, I'm going to vote for you. I know you're not on my team, but I'm going to cheer for you because we sat Phil down, so we're good. So, yeah, we're just going to cheer for you and let you go. Just, you do you. Go. Show him up.
the funny thing was when there were the goose puns, and that's when Beth got Goose Partington plans, and I was like, that's impressive. Like, look, you will not find me getting the pun questions. My brain just doesn't work that way.
So she missed 2 questions, only 2. One of them was a pun, and the other one dealt with Hugh Laurie. That's it.
And you know what? I did end up remembering Hugh Laurie because I did ding the bell, but by that point it was too late. That was such a terrible brain freeze. But yeah, the funny thing was, originally I'd asked Brad like if there was going to be a Holmes and Watson category, and this was like months and months ago, and he was like, nah, probably not. And then apparently he changed his mind because there was a Holmes and Watson category. I guess at which point one of the tables just like actually vacated the row.
They got up and left.
One of the really funny things to me was that a lot of the early questions had to deal with publication history. And like, I'm sitting next to Ira, and one of Ira's Sherlockian specialties is American publication history of the canon. And he keeps going, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And then finally, and I'm going to kind of take my microphone away for this, but he goes, where are you getting these dates from? And Brad's like, I don't know. I don't remember what he said. Something about Peoria. And then Erica, who was also originally from Peoria herself, was like, oh, hey, Brad, present. But yeah, it was so funny. Oh, and then there was the part where Steve got to ask questions from the goose's perspective. So you had to figure out which stories these were based on the perspective of geese.
Which is also where the puns came from too, so.
Those were delightful, though. I think it was... like, I know a lot of people were just like, I think it was a magical evening. I'm not saying that because I won. It was just it was a heck of a lot of fun. And then because I got the most individual points, I won a bottle of wine.
Which is where the $70 bottle of wine came from.
Yeah. Yeah. And did not think to open it there, and now I'm sad, and now I have to wait until I'm with Sherlockians again to have it, which means it has to be somewhere that I'm driving to, so it's not going to be New York.
Fair.
But then also, like, because our team won, we got to like raid the Countess of Morcar's jewel box. Filled with all the books that Brad was trying to get rid of and some sundry items. So that was a lot of fun. There were some neat little things that I got out of there, including the original. You know what? This is not going to be a video thing, but I have got, where is it? I have got to show you guys this. I have always said that the first time I read that, like, the first Sherlock Holmes story I read was The Speckled Band. I was 8 years old and it scared me. And it was in the Great Illustrated Classics.
Aww.
And okay, here's the thing. I was like, I kind of feel like probably there were some scary illustrations of the snake or something. All right.
That's enough to scare anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, no wonder little 8-year-old me was...
Yeah.
Holy cow. So, yeah, but I have that down for memories.
So now anytime you want nightmares, you can just go back to that.
Yeah, fun times. Oh. But yeah, so then after that, it was really time to take up all the new books to back to the room, and then also pack because we were going to get an early start in the morning, and it was a good idea to be basically packed before then. And then we went back downstairs and over to the bar and where people were still congregated, and that was just a nice time. Like, I enjoyed just chilling with you and Beth there for hours. It was actually hours, and it was just a nice, just chill. It was good. It's a good way to come down from all the craziness. And then the next morning, we went out to the Gateway Arch, and we started out in the museum below the arch, and that is a really cool museum. I really enjoyed that. We got a tour and just a lot of neat stuff. Apparently, St. Louis is like the oldest urban area in the United States because of prior indigenous cities. So that was very cool. And then finally, it was time to go up to the top of the arch. And I had been warned that it was going to be tight in the cars, but it really was claustrophobic in the cars. There's just these little pods, like little tiny escape pods that 5 people go into. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad that I'm as short as I am for once. Thankfully, like, you could at least see out the doors because the doors were glass panes. And then I was, Phil Burgum was in there with me, and he's an engineer. And so he's just like geeking out as we're going up about like the construction inside of the arch. And so finally we're at the top, and oh man, what a view. It was just an amazing view from up there. And what was really cool was, you know, like we could see the shadow of the arch. So I took pictures of that. Monica, of course, got the best picture because she was the one who was thinking about it. She took a vertical shot so you could see, you know, the shadow like extending off into the city, and it was really cool. But yeah, that was awesome. And then I got some pictures of Sherlock up against the window, which made me very happy. Yeah, it was great. And then we went back down. And after that, we walked over to the old spaghetti factory. And like I said, the weather had gotten cooler on Sunday. Thank goodness. And that was when I was at the spaghetti factory that I had to say goodbye to Beth. She had to go catch her flight. And when like I'm just standing by myself and trying to figure out, you know, while we're waiting to be seated, and Rob comes up and he's like, "You look lonely without Beth." I'm like, "Yeah, I miss my TV sister. She's gone." But yeah, gosh, that restaurant is beautiful, and the food was so good. We had a proper like 3-course meal. We had like you know, a choice of salad, soup, or bread, plus the bread that we just automatically got, and then, you know, choice of entree, and then ice cream afterwards. The ice cream was really good. For my entree, I got the 2 giant meatballs, and for once I was not able to finish my meal because that was just a lot of food, but I made sure to finish those meatballs. Those are the best meatballs of my life. But yeah, it was just a really nice last part of the weekend to spend with people. And then after that, it was time to say goodbye. And Heather kindly got me back to the hotel. Oh, and I did fill up on gas before I left Missouri because
Good
it was
idea.
way cheaper there. And yeah, it was so much fun. And I was so sad to go home, especially since it wasn't as much of a drive as 221 become, but also like it was happening like already, like a lot of the day had happened for me. So then I was like, I still have 5.5 hours of driving. Actually, the worst of it was just like after I'd gotten back onto I-55 because there was road work and I just got stuck in bumper to bumper traffic because they were down to 1 lane for just like a mile, but that was enough to keep me stuck for like 10, 20 minutes.
Yep, sounds about right.
Yeah. Chicago, by contrast, was a piece of cake. Because it was late. It was late by the time I got there, which is fine. I don't mind Chicago being an easier drive. But yeah, that was my side of the weekend, and it was really wonderful and a lot of fun. And I want to do it all over again.
Not in St. Louis, I hope.
In a couple of years?
We don't know. We are still in our area. Kristen and I are under the impression that we will give Rob 3 years, and then when he comes up with this idea again, we're going to lock him in the closet until he comes to his senses, and then we're going to have some very, very, very deep negotiations about that.
I'm just saying, I think that there are a lot of expectations now.
Yeah, wonderful. It's like, no, we can't possibly top it, so we're just never going to do it again.
Oh,
ahead.
That's never how these things work.
I know. It's like childbirth. In 3 years, we'll forget how all the struggles we had and be like, what would be fun?
So what was your favorite part of the weekend, Heather?
Yeah. I think my favorite part of the weekend was probably the speeches, because unlike Madeline, I started on the academic side. I came back in through the fandom side, and now I'm sneaking my way through the academic side again. Mm-hmm. So the only symposiums and conferences via Sherlock that I've ever been to was the 2017, 2018 Holmes in the Heartland, the very first one, and 221 Beacon. I haven't been on any of the other Sherlockian conferences. That's on my 2024 to-do list. Mm-hmm. So
Minnesota.
Yeah, when I am going to Minnesota. So I don't really know how they worked. So I've never had the privilege of hearing some of these people before. So it was interesting and exciting, and like Steve Doyle's speech about Baron Gruner was so good, and Ray Betzner's speech about Moriarty, I was like, you know what, maybe I don't hate him as much as I think I do. So there was some serious push to make Moriarty the sympathetic character. It's like, look, he's not really all that bad, he's just a mathematician, which should explain everything. And I've never heard Mike McSwiggan, and I was laughing so hard it wasn't even funny.
Right?
I was laughing so hard. I'm like, I couldn't breathe at times. And I'm like, wait, stop. I have to make sure to stay still. Other than that, I loved all the speeches, but other than that, I think possibly my favorite parts, which are usually always my favorite parts of any convention, are the non-scheduled things. So when we ended up in a bar, on Friday night, it was Beth and Madeline and I and Olivia who ended up staying in the room that we had for the dessert and just talking until 11:30. Yeah, and Rusty. Yeah. And staying there until 11:30 or 12 o'clock, just talking. And then again on Sunday, when it was Madeline, Beth, and I sitting in the bar, and we beat out all the other Sherlockians who went to bed early, the pansies. And we stayed up until almost 12:30, 1 o'clock, just talking about anything. And I think those are my favorite parts of any conventions, the organic gathering of people sitting on a couch somewhere, just talking about whatever. Yeah. Just the Sherlockians getting together thing. And it's part of one of my favorite things about 221 Beacon too, because eventually, inevitably, either Friday night or Saturday night, I will end up on a couch with Joanna and Ashley and Curtis and Madeline, and we'll just be talking about stuff or just listening to them talk about stuff. And it's one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, probably those.
Yeah, well, I was saying, during our con recap that, this was only my second in-person con. And already I was like, you know what? The panels are fun, but I'm definitely not going there for the panels. I'm going just to hang out with people, really. Mm-hmm. Although there were really great presentations at this conference. It was a solid lineup. And also this was my first in-person conference
Right.
So that was wonderful. Rob said that Dayton was a lot like this one, and it's like that's one more, encouragement for me to make sure that I can do Dayton next time. Maybe it could happen. That'd be
Yeah.
nice. Because I do hear good things about that one. But yeah, definitely the conversations were the best part, but also I just loved all of it. Really did. It made me happy. So yeah, it was so much fun. Thank you, Heather, for everything. that you-
Oh, I didn't
Thank
do
you
much
for
of
your
anything.
sacrifice.
I really didn't do much of anything, but that's okay.
Alrighty, well, this is a lot of fun, and I don't know what our next episode is going to be. I'm kind of thinking that we might, because I am entering into the busy season at work. Actually, I'm in it now. So we might be on a little bit of a hiatus until November, when we're gonna have a special episode. And Dixie is smiling because she knows that she's the one on the hook this time. But yeah, you are going to have to start, if you haven't already, you're going to have to start seriously thinking about the master and what you are going to
You say
do.
that like I'm not doing
Well,
that
I mean,
every day.
specifically about what you're going to say. Of course, when we do get to Michelle Gomez, you might have trouble shutting me up at that point. You already know that. You know all my feels, but I'm not going to be able to resist. But yeah, I think that'll probably be our next episode. And then in December, we'll be talking with Claire about Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. Oh, that was one of the trivia answers, by the way.
Which is probably the one that she answered in 3 questions or less,
Yeah,
or 3 words or less. Was that it?
No. Look, I always let the questions go out to the point where I had enough information. Still so funny. Yeah, I'm kind of helping that I know these things. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Heather, for being here. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you for
so
inviting
much.
me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening. And also, we will have some bonus content on Patreon from the stuff that I recorded that will not fit into this episode. So, even if you don't want to go in for a dollar amount that'll give you a reward, if you go in at the $1 level, you will not get stickers. You will not get very pretty art prints. And quite frankly, I think that you should get very pretty art prints because they came out phenomenally well.
You should get really pretty art prints.
That is at the $5 level, but you get 2. You get 2 of them. But at the $1 level, you still get access to whatever we put up on Patreon. And we are going to be putting some stuff up on Patreon. So, toss a coin to your Moriartyans, please. We need it so bad. The professor's not paying it. The professor is not paying us enough for this. So. Alrighty.
And just give that Patreon link.
Patreon.com/dynamics of a podcast. I'm positive that's what it is. All right. So that is a wrap. We are shutting this down now. So see you guys in November, probably. Dynamics of a Podcast was created by Madeline Quinones, with sound design and editing by Dixie Parkinson, and music by Joshua Harvey. We do this podcast purely for the fun of the thing. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time.